ESPN 1080 presents Round 3, your show that presents all the news in MMA. I'm Eric Lopez alongside, of course, our MMA guru, Brian Wininger.
What's going on? What's up, Carson? Glad to have you back.
Carson is back. He disappeared, did a Diaz, and just no-showed last week.
That's right. I was just trying to be difficult. I wanted to simulate the trials and tribulations that Dana White had to deal with and put that on you guys.
Well, I've been saying it the whole time. Carson never plays the game. That's why he hasn't been here before. He's never gave him a chance. We gave him a title shot. He just doesn't know how to play the game.
I don't know.
Does that mean does he mean he goes from facing off against you, maybe he gets to face off Jarrett instead now?
No, he's got BJ Penn.
He's got BJ Penn
and the co-main.
I've dealt with
no
Jarrett.
More title fight. He's got
co-main many a time. I'm all right.
We got a great show coming up here for you, folks. Oh, yeah, there's a big card this week, isn't there, Brian? UFC 135.
Cannot wait. I love Jon Jones. I love Rampage. They're getting it on in the cage. It's one of those fights that is just going to be fireworks, and it's going to end in a spectacular fashion. Watch.
So we're going to break down every match from the fight from the 135. We'll give you our picks. We're also going to talk about an upset over the weekend, an Octagon, an upset that no one saw coming. But first, we lead with a legend coming back into the Octagon, Brian, Mr. Wininger. What do we make of the news of the fact that Dan Henderson signs with UFC and will fight ShoGun at the main event of UFC 139 in San Jose, California, on November 19th?
It's going to be great. Henderson hasn't fought in the UFC since that brutal knockout of Michael Bisping back at UFC 100, July 11th, 2009. He's had a couple stints in Strikeforce, has that notable loss against Jake Shields a year ago. But, he's fighting at light heavyweight again. It's his third fight back at the light heavyweight, and Dan Henderson still has it. He's 41. He's got a killer right hand and ShoGun off his big win off of Forrest Griffin. It should be fun. Great main event.
Your thoughts, Carson, on this event? Does this main event get you interested in UFC 139? The original main event, many speculate, was, of course, Velasquez Dos Santos, which got moved to Fox a week earlier. Your thoughts on this one?
I think that it's a good fight to have. I mean, both of these guys, being so long tenured in the sport and fighting, both of them have been in the UFC at one point. They've been in Pride at one point. But neither of them facing off against each other before. It's an intriguing matchup and a good matchup, I think, for the history of the sport. And then you look at, Henderson. Normally, when a guy leaves the UFC, they leave after a string of losses. They're just kind of put out to pasture. But Henderson had won his last 3 fights in the Octagon. So now he comes back, gets an opportunity. Of course, he's won his last 3 fights in Strikeforce. And so he gets an opportunity to get back in there. And obviously a great name in the sport and awesome for the UFC's brand for that he's back in play.
Well, and you mentioned he was one of those rare fighters who actually left the UFC on a winning streak. That, of course, was him and Dana White were having contract disputes. Henderson actually, off that huge win of Michael Bisping, held out to get more money, and it got to a point where Dana just said, you know what, here's the offer, take it or leave it, and Dan Henderson left it. But that's the mixed martial arts game now. It's if you're an intriguing fighter, if you are an exciting fighter, and if you are a big name, then and you're on a winning streak, you're going to have room in the UFC. And this, of course, him and ShoGun is going to appeal to the hardcore fans, like Carson was saying. Both Pride guys back in the day never really matched up, and both of those guys are this is a pivotal fight. Total pivotal fight for both of them.
And hey, anyone that can beat Fedor and just knock him down again as a fraud, that makes me happy. I'm happy with that any day. And
speaking of Fedor, he's announced his next fight. He'll fight Jeff Manson, I believe.
Munson,
thank you.
Jeff 5'9" of him.
November 20th in Moscow, an M1 Global promotion.
So basically, let's bring a guy in that has no chance of beating.
Well, it seems like Fedor now is the Notre Dame of MMA. He's pretty much on his own promotion now. He's M1 Global is his own promotion company.
It's pretty good, actually. That's a good comparison. I like that.
Those, of course, were the buffer in between the UFC and Fedor actually getting a deal done was his production company, M1 Global, and now Fedor even though he's lost three in a row decisively, he still has some draw, and people do still want to see him fight. I don't, but I know, but people out there do. So that's the kind of route he's going to take.
Now the fight is, as of now, would not be on the United States television, although they are negotiating. Reports are they're going to negotiate with Showtime, so that fight could be on Showtime. So you could have a weekend there where you got the pay-per-view, Henderson, ShoGun, and then on Showtime you have Fedor and Munson.
And
there.
Of course, that's where Fedor's been living these last couple fights of his career have been on Showtime.
Yeah,
not pay-per-view, so they have that relationship there. But it's Fedor just, I think, collecting a check at this point. Jeff Munson had a stretch run, probably 5 years ago when he actually fought Tim Sylvia for the heavyweight belt back in the UFC, lost, and hasn't been back since. So I don't put in the whole the whole scheme of things. I don't put much stock into this fight, but that's where Fedor is at in his career.
Yeah, it's an amazing fall from grace, as they say. Once and mighty. Hard to believe. What was it, 2 years ago? Everybody wanted Fedor versus Lesnar, right? That was the dream fight.
Yeah, it was. But you notice this with a lot of guys, a lot of veterans of the sport. Where they start getting knocked out. It's like that clock turns on, and their chin just gets softer and softer, where they keep getting knocked out. You see that with Chuck Liddell.
Anyone that knew the sport knew that Fedor was a fraud. Even back then, I knew it. He's proved it. So, have fun in Russia fighting your irrelevant fights against the hacks that you line up.
And of course, we'll never know how Fedor was going to be. He's never fought in the UFC, so we never really truly knew how great of a fighter he was. But he never fought the best. I don't want to bring in boxing, but it's kind of like Mayweather and Pacquiao, I still feel, I love Mayweather, but I still feel that he needs to fight the best fighter of his generation, and that's kind of what Fedor never did in his career. He never fought the best fighter of his generation.
By the way, for those of you who want to hear Brian Wininger's more thoughts on him on Floyd Mayweather, can check out the boxing preview. We had Mayweather-Ortiz preview with Jared Rudolph. Big debate that has been well received. People want a rematch, you and Jared.
Yeah, I'm down. It was one
monster numbers.
Yeah, one person commented he loved the what was
podcast,
it?
Best podcast.
But what was it? The constructive argument
debate, constructive debate, great constructive debate. MMA versus boxing,
and it was Jared brought it.
Yeah,
but it was good. It was supposed to be a scheduled 20-minute podcast. Kind of lasted upwards up to an hour.
It's a haymaker, man.
We had fun.
Now you guys got a trilogy waiting. So more on that as the time goes. Let's move back to UFC Fight Night. Held Fight Night in the Bayou, beautiful Louisiana, for Fight Night 25, and a big shocking story, of course. Jake Shields in the main event, heavy favorites against Jake Ellenberger, and Shields goes down on a TKO round one, and Jake Ellenberger pulls off an upset here. But Brian, what the heck happened here?
You know what? Jake Ellenberger is a great wrestler. I didn't see this coming at all. He pretty much shocked the world. It's so crazy how Jake Shields came in just months ago as this guy who hasn't lost in 14 straight fights, up there with GSP, knocked him on his butt pretty much the whole fight, gets in there, had his first fight in the UFC was very shaky against Campman. He got absolutely dominated by St. Pierre, and then, of course, finished in the second round by Ellenberger. But it was one of those shock the world kind of. Ellenberger's a great fighter, but I just think people thought Jake Shields, when he was coming to the UFC, he was just going to be this dominating force that what we thought he was going to be, but it hasn't turned out that way. And it's a testament to the UFC and how any guy can win at any fight, especially like a guy like Jake Ellenberger. So now that just completely skyrockets his stock.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, Brian. I mean, it doesn't matter, what kind of reputation a fighter has coming into the UFC. I think you're always skeptical about what they can really achieve at what has become the highest level in mixed martial arts right now. I mean, this is a guy that had never fought in the UFC. And, of course, he got the win over Martin Kampmann to start his UFC career, but now consecutive losses, and no one's going to fault him for losing to GSP in the fashion he did. This one was certainly more surprising, but any guy like this that is built up outside of the realm of the octagon, I've always got serious doubts about.
Very serious doubts. So, big win for Ellenberger. We have, it was an interesting fight, that's for sure. It was a big surprise, and we have certainly comments.
It's all for this night, and like I said, my coaches are there for me all the time. They believe in me, and man, it's hard to believe, you know. It's just the sky's the limit, you know. They tell me every day the sky's the limit, and just working hard. So it really, you know, tonight really showed, man. It happened really fast, you know. I in the clinch, I hit him with some knees, but like Mark and I've been working on Munoz is when guys in your legs, just strike in every position, you know. And I knew he was hurt, so I just went for the finish. I worked my butt off, and it proved tonight, you know, it helped out tonight big time. So it's awesome.
There it is. Thoughts from Jake Ellenberger after the big win there, Brian.
Well, and he mentioned that he worked with Mark Munoz, who is a great guy to train with if you're training with a guy like Jake Shields. Great wrestler, low center of gravity, hard-nosed guy, strong guy. So, he said that worked, and the way Jake Ellenberger finished the fight, I think that was the most impressive. I wouldn't have been that surprised if it came out to be a decision fight, but the way he finished Jake Shields, no one finishes Jake Shields.
Sure.
George St. Pierre didn't finish Jake Shields, you know. So I mean, it's a very impressive win for Ellenberger. Big stage, and he delivered.
Yeah. What's next for both?
Well, both. I mean, if I was Jake Shields, now Jake Shields is 1-2 in the welterweight division, with that one win being a very narrow split decision against Martin Kampmann, his first fight in the UFC. I think Jake Shields should really go up to middleweight. That's where he was in Strikeforce. That's where he beat a guy like Dan Henderson in Strikeforce. I think that's more of his natural weight. I think that weight cut to 170 really, really takes it out of him. He claims it doesn't, but I think it shows, and he fatigues. Obviously, he was dealing with the passing of his father in this fight. There was a lot of things going on. But as far as Jake Shields in the future, I think best that he moves up to middleweight division. And then a guy like Jake Ellenberger, with 5 straight wins in the welterweight division, he just moves up to fight the next great competition. I think, honestly, Ellenberger is going to fight the winner of Matt Hughes and Josh Koscheck.
That's a good point. I was going to say either that fight or maybe eventually getting a fight down the line here against your favorite guy, John Fitch.
Right? You know, that right there would be John Fitch is.
I know you like talking about John Fitch.
I do, so because I give you
the opportunity.
The only reason why John Fitch isn't fighting for the belt is because of his style and the way he fights. You know, he's not very, but he wins. He's not very interesting, but he wins. And I think him against Ellenberger would make a lot of sense in the welterweight division. And of course, the winner of that, unless it's John Fitch, will be one step closer to a title fight, I think.
Because there's still a few guys, I think, between Ellenberger and St. Pierre, obviously.
Sure.
But, he's in the mix now, maybe as even a top five fighter in the class.
Yeah,
perhaps.
you TKO Jake Shields impressively like that. You do move into the top 5 based on doing something that impressive.
Sure. Now, other news from the Fight Night 25, the television ratings came out, and they drew a is that like television rating news number?
You like that? No. I'm getting the rejoin ready.
So UFC Fight Night drew 1.8 million viewers this past Saturday night, which is about the same they did on the June 4th finale of Season 13 of The Ultimate Fighter, to kind of compare that to live UFC programming on Spike. It was an interesting number. I got some other details on this. The UFC show led basic cable channels on age 18 to 34. And came in second behind only ESPN's college football.
I was going to say that.
Miami-Ohio State game for age 18 to 49. So the demographics are right on target. They're getting that young audience. 1.8 million was the audience here. And a little down what they've done in the past, but still not too bad considering all the competition with football.
I was just going to say that. Football, you had the Mayweather fight, and then you had you had this fight. But yeah, the other thing that was impressive by that number is you had Jake Shields and Jake Ellenberger, who really aren't the big meter movers in the ratings game. So,
and this is what I'll say, just because I didn't get involved in that boxing conversation last week, but I did get to hear it. This is what I think makes this sport different than that sport. I don't think you ever have a boxing card with 2 fighters the caliber of a Shields and Ellenberger drawing the numbers that this UFC fight did on Spike.
No, exactly. And the thing you have with the UFC card as opposed to a boxing card, you've got 5 fights, 5 legitimate fights that mean something, as opposed to you're just seeing Mayweather fight Ortiz. But I see Eric getting a little.
This is a tease for our
down.
next
This is a tease.
Podcast,
Let's talk more
right?
MMA. But yeah,
you're teasing this. You're getting ready for the rematch with Rudolph. But no, some good stuff. Couple quick numbers before we go to break here. The biggest audience they had was in January when Phil Davis against Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira. They had about 2.2 million viewers, to give you an idea. So that takes care of that. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, oh yeah, we're getting into it, folks. UFC 135, Rampage and Mr. Jones making the national media. What show are they on? We'll tell you about it next. That and much more. You're listening to Round 3 on ESPN 1080.com.
ESPN Radio 1080, the team.
Let's say one nice thing about each other before we go. If you would, just one nice thing. And John, we'll start with you. Say one nice thing about Quinton.
Quinton, you have such a magnificently large head. And I heard it a lot. Even if my eyes were closed, I'm sure I could just hit you right square in the chin. And it's just a beautiful thing.
Well, that's not as nice as I was hoping.
John, your ears are not as bad as they appear to be. Like
hey,
when
that's just wrong.
That's
nice. That is
nice. Like at first, when I first looked at you, I thought you was the first black gremlin. But now that
Welcome back to another edition of Round 3 here on ESPN 1080.com. Eric Lopez alongside Carson Ingle and Brian Wininger. And that, I can't believe I'm saying it, was Jimmy Kimmel live talking to Rampage Jackson and Jon Jones from Monday's edition of Jimmy Kimmel Live.
No, it's great. I mean, that right there is what the sport needs. The sport needs arguably the two most popular guys in the sport being on the national stage, like Jimmy Kimmel Live.
What did we tell you a few weeks ago, Eric? Jon Jones, personable guy, good guy in front of the spotlight. He can do it.
What did you think, Eric, about Jon Jones' performance on Jimmy Kimmel?
He was good. He was fine. I mean, Rampage was Rampage, which I enjoyed a lot. It was good. It was a very good move. I like the fact they both were on. They were very civil. Good for the sport. Good way to promote it. And Jimmy Kimmel was great.
What I noticed, you normally notice during the weigh-ins, was the size difference between Jones and Rampage. Ultimately, I think that's what's going to play a huge role in this fight. But yeah, seeing them stand next to each other like that,
Well, before we get into the actual fight, let's talk. I mean, that's big. To UFC, the main event on Jimmy Kimmel Live on network television. That was not heard of. I don't think, does that ever happen before?
I mean, Chuck Liddell's been on Kimmel. But
Kimmel's clearly an MMA guy. Kimmel's clearly the new generation. I mean, I don't think you'll ever see a UFC fighter on Jay Leno or
no, absolutely, yeah. He's more of definitely a progressive show.
That's a good word.
Who is realizing that this sport's taking off and it's got great personalities in it. Dr. Phil was the headliner.
Yeah,
that was hilarious.
That was my favorite part. Dr. Phil is just sitting and watching these two.
It's a perfect guy to be there.
Perfect guy
in the middle of the fight. Dr. Phil. There he is. He's a conflict resolver himself. They're right there.
Right. Yeah, and he was. You could tell Rampage. Rampage has a short fuse with everything. Like he gets crazy, and you could tell. You could tell Dr. Phil was in there. Trying to just talk him up, whatever. But Rampage does not like getting made fun of in public like that.
No.
I know we all don't, but Rampage definitely does not. And that
I get a little rage there going.
Yeah, you can see the Rampage.
I don't think this is
eyes.
the end of the national media either. I could see one of them being on Dan Lebitard, who had Mayweather on last week to promote the fight. I could see either Rampage being on with Lebitard. Lebitard is a big MMA guy.
Yeah, his new ESPN2 show. That's
highly questionable.
That's a good possibility, actually. I like that. I don't know if that's happening. I haven't seen his guest list this week, but
I'd be surprised if he didn't. Just because he's a big MMA guy.
I will tell you the kind of interesting thing leading up to this that's not about the main fight, but about one of the other fights is Matt Hughes has been writing a blog for ESPN.com leading up to his fight against Josh Koscheck. So that's kind of an interesting thing that's a little different, a little unique, getting a UFC personality
behind
involved.
The scenes.
Right, and Lebitard and I know Cowherd and like Jim Rome, they love Dana White. Dana White's one of their most favorite guests on their show. So, all those guys, they know what's up, and it's just going to be a matter of time.
Well, that's definitely going to get a lot of press this week, and I'm sure, Brian, you're part of the Beat of Sports this week. You guys will hit up on as we get closer to the end of the week. I'm sure you're going to be asked on the Tracy Dent Show on Friday. You're pretty sure you're going to have your own segment. Yeah. I have a feeling. Tracy and you breaking down UFC 135, Carson. I know you're tuning in, huh?
Unbelievable. That's must-listen-to radio.
It's almost like me talking on Track Time, his NASCAR show. That's how much
you did. You pulled that off.
But that's how much Tracy is going to be just like, what? What is MMA?
Yeah, that'll be a little interesting. Of course, we're going to get you covered here on ESPN 1080. We mentioned it. Beat It Sports 911. Brian will be on there. I'm sure you guys will hit it up either Thursday or Friday. I believe Bauman's co-host filling in for Mark on Friday.
Yeah, Mark's going off to BYU.
Provo, Utah.
UCF game. Bauman's going to fill in.
So I'm sure Bauman will hit you up.
Oh, yeah.
And then, obviously, like we mentioned, the Tracy Dent Show, Fridays 1 to 3. And then, of course, the ESPN1080.com Insider Show on Sunday morning. You can call in and at the last segment of the show, break it down for us, right?
If I'm up, exactly.
Right?
No, I'd love to, and that's our mission statement, if you will, is just to get the word out there in MMA. If it takes 5 shows to do it during the week, then we're going to do it.
And we would welcome Jones and Rampage to our show, right? If they ever want to come back on,
Of course they do. Yeah. I mean, Rampage, I wouldn't really want him in studio, but
not if you're going to pick against him.
No, I Rampage's great, but the fight. A lot of people are picking Jones for this fight.
Heavy
Huge
favorite. What's the odds?
favorite.
You've got the odds. What's the numbers?
Jones is at -700 and Rampage is at +450.
That is an absurd, big-time heavy favorite. Well, let's get into this fight now. Obviously, Jones is just unique. If Rampage is to pull off the upset, what does he have to do?
He's got to catch him. He's got to knock him out.
Simple. Power, right?
Just that simple. And, it's been done before. Not to Jones, but Rampage, that's his bread and butter. He's on Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel asked Jon Jones to compare your two to superheroes. Jon Jones said he was Spider-Man, and he said Rampage was Frankenstein, which kind of makes sense because Rampage is kind of that stiff, punch forward kind of guy. Great power, legend in the sport. I just think Jon Jones is that new wave fighter who just has it all the tools, and I think he's just going to be too big, too athletic, and too creative for Rampage to even have a shot in this.
Eric, he's got to basically almost turn back the clock into that knockout power. He has to regain what he was so known for early on in his career. I mean, you look at his last handful of fights. In his last 7 fights, 6 have gone to decision. This was a guy that, win or lose, it was a knockout early in his career, and now some decision fights. Of course, he's only lost 2 of those fights, but just the fact of, I don't think that he's going to be able to sit there with Jon Jones through 5 rounds and compete and ultimately win that fight, not only because I don't think that he will earn it, but also because I think that through a 5-round fight with Jon Jones, the benefit of the doubt always goes to the current champion, and Jon Jones is only 24. The UFC doesn't have a lot to gain by seeing Rampage win at this point.
Well, I think that's, you made a great point. Rampage is... This fight isn't going to last 5 rounds, to your point.
Either way,
it just won't.
Either way.
No, either way. It just won't. So, Rampage has to come out swinging early, and he's got to catch him. I think that's his only option. He's not going to take Jones down. Jones the better wrestler. And ultimately, the striking game, Jones, I always say this, but Jones's reach is just so long, and he's developed such a good striking game where he's just so unorthodox and comes at you in all different directions. It's really a tough task. That's why I think Jon Jones is one of the best fighters in the world, and Rampage is just in his way.
How do you expect Jones to attack Rampage? What's his game plan?
I think Jones is just going to come out and let Rampage take the fight to him and react. Which Rampage, I think, will do. He will come forward, and Jones will, who knows? Jones is going to throw things that you will never see in the octagon. And that's why I think this fight is gonna have fireworks. It's gonna end in a spectacular fashion. Ultimately, Jones, I got him winning by TKO. I feel like he's gonna just get on top of Rampage and stop him. Rampage has such a great chin. I don't think he's gonna get knocked out, but I think the ref is gonna stop it because Jones is not gonna give him a choice to get up. That's how I think it's gonna go down.
Quick knockdown.
Within the first 2 rounds, but I don't see this fight going past 2 rounds at all.
Carson?
I think that Jones may be able to get Rampage on the ground, and I think we might be looking at even a submission win. I mean, that's what's great about Jones. He's got knockout wins on his resume. He's able to submit fighters as well. This is the new era of UFC fighter that doesn't just bring one discipline into the octagon, that doesn't have one skill, one ability. They have a variety of skills. And Jon Bones, I think, is simply, if he's able to get Rampage on the ground, I think he quickly sort of just outmatches him down there, where Rampage doesn't know the kind of things that Jon Bones knows at this point.
Well, and put it this way, Jon Bones is 24. He's the champion, and already on his resume, he's beaten guys like Brandon Vera, Ryan Bader, ShoGun. He should have beat Matt Hamill, but that was an illegal downward elbow that he got disqualified. But he was winning that fight. Stephan Bonner. So Rampage is just another guy on his list, and he's slowly starting to build an impressive resume where he's right now he's already the best light heavyweight in the world, but he's just sitting on top right now, waiting for fighters to come to him, and he's just gonna knock people out and take names. Just add to his list.
How do you think this will do in the box office pay-per-view buys? Obviously, it's a big fight. We've talked about this in past episodes. The numbers have been a little flat as of recently, around 350,000 buys. Rampage is a big draw, big name. Probably, where would you rank him as far as outside of MMA fans? People know Rampage. Would you say he's ranks around?
He's top three.
Top three?
He's top three.
What do you say? It's Lesnar?
I'd say Lesnar. Right now, I'd say George St. Pierre, and then probably Rampage.
Would you agree with that?
I think that people know Silva more than they know St. Pierre. So maybe Lesnar, Silva, St. Pierre, Rampage. It's right there. It's close.
Yeah, you're right. Silva's definitely in that conversation. But Rampage is right up there, and that's an interesting point. It's going to be because that's what Jon Bones' next step. He's already won the belt. Now he's got to prove that he is a champion who can draw big numbers, and just stylistically, the way he fights, the way he is. I think he can do that, but it's going to be interesting to see what the numbers draw.
And I was going to say, is that Rampage's role in this fight? I mean, it's clearly you feel it's a mismatch in the fight. His role here is to kind of bring the pay-per-view buys and, in a way, make Jones even a bigger star?
His role is to make Jones a bigger star. I think this is kind of the fight where you go against a guy and they're trying to pump Jones up to even a higher stratosphere by beating a guy who's very popular, who they know will bring in extra buys. They're not going to put him against another up-and-comer, another guy that's, in the light heavyweight division that's gained some acclaim, but certainly doesn't have that long-term career recognition that Rampage has and that celebrity. So putting these two guys together only helps what they're trying to do in the way they're trying to market Jones.
Do you think Rampage genuinely believes right now he can beat him, or do you think deep down he knows what's coming? I mean, based on what you've seen his interaction, not only in Jimmy Kimmel, but all these presses, he's been talking this, and you think he deep down feels he can beat this guy, or do you think you think he can beat him?
I think Rampage has been in the sport and
because he's been questioned in the past about his work ethic as far as preparing for a fight. You think he's taking this very seriously and very legitimately? Obviously, believes he can win this fight.
Yeah, no, I definitely do. Jon Bones is one of these guys who, because he hasn't been in the sport as long as all these other guys, I think he does kind of get taken lightly to an extent. I think that margin is drastically diminishing, but I think ShoGun came out, and ShoGun's was more confident. ShoGun came out and said, Jon Bones is great. He's beaten a lot of good guys, but he hasn't faced anyone like me before. And I think Rampage has that same mentality. But I think Rampage's mentality and what he thinks about Jon Bones is going to drastically change that night when that octagon door closes and he touched gloves with Jones and he realized the beast that he's in the octagon with.
Any chance Jones takes Rampage for granted?
No. I think Jon Bones is one of the hardest working guys in the sport. He's with the best camp in the sport, Greg Jackson's camp out of New Mexico. He's surrounded by so many great guys, and he's young, hungry. He knows where he is right now. This is what he's wanted to do since he started training mixed martial arts, and he knows the stage. He's a smart guy, and I don't think he takes anyone lightly.
Yeah, I think you look for Jones, and to make a comparison about the kind of mentality he's under right now, I think he's in the same sort of mindset that you see all great young up-and-coming stars, whether it be, Tiger Woods in his prime, the mentality that they had about going out there and wanting to just win everything and not taking anyone lightly. And knowing that their ability gives them the confidence and able to go out and execute the way they want to. I think that Jones has that supreme confidence, but on a good level, not overconfident, but confident enough to get the job done and be able to string together several title defenses in a row.
Well, and that's the thing. He's 13-1, and his only loss has been a DQ. So right then and there, he's 6-0 in the UFC. So that right there does a lot with your confidence. He hasn't lost before. He doesn't know how it feels to lose. So right then and there, you got to think he feels like he's somewhat invincible to this point, even though he doesn't take anyone lightly. But like what Carson said, he's this young up and coming guy who I don't think he knows any better. He knows I think he knows he's great.
He knows he's great.
He's great.
How about this little statement he's come out with, according to ESPN? Jon Jones has now said he claimed he will walk into the octagon on Saturday night, not as a champion, but as a warrior, attempting to fulfill his destiny. He will not touch his belt before the fight. He goes, quote, "As a warrior, I think it's dangerous to become obsessed with belts and rank and stature," Jones said. "I think it's more about the lifestyle. When you're a fighter, there is no destination. If I had the choice, I probably wouldn't touch the belt before the fight. I probably won't. I beat ShoGun, but it has nothing to do with beating Rampage."
That's a champion right there, and that says it all. That says it all right there. That is a scary individual who not only is the best athlete in the octagon, but has a sense of, how can I say it, not arrogance, but confidence in his ability, that he knows being a mixed martial artist is a lifestyle. It's not just show up and fight some guy for a belt. He lives that mixed martial arts lifestyle, kind of like George St. Pierre does, who is one of his training partners at Jackson's camp. That it's a different mentality and a different level, and it's what separates the guys who are good from great.
I'm just interested to see what side the sports bars are going to be on Saturday night, because obviously Rampage is a popular guy. People in the sport have liked him, but the hardcore fans that have seen Jones come up have fallen in love with this guy and the way that he's taken the sport to a new level. I think it's going to be kind of a split atmosphere on Saturday night.
I agree 100%.
I agree with that too. No, I definitely agree with that. Rampage is one of these guys now who his career has been. You don't watch Rampage because you want to see some guy win a belt or see some guy like be a technical fighter. You want to see Rampage because he's a killer in there and he's Rampage. This guy could lose 5 straight fights and you still want to see a guy like Rampage fight. It's kind of like a guy like Vanderlei Silva, a guy who always shows up to fight and always brings it on fight night. So yeah, I think that's exactly the direction that they're going in.
Should be a good one. We'll get into more of that. We'll make our official pick of that fight coming up here in the next segment, as well as the rest of the card of UFC 135. We'll break it down and make our picks, including Brian Wininger's winners.
Oh, what? Stay tuned.
Absolutely. This is round 3 on ESPN 1080.com on ESPN 1080, the team. ESPN1080.com is round 3, your show that gives you all the news in MMA. Eric Lopez alongside Brian Wininger and Carson Ingle. And Wininger, where can the audience reach out to you?
Follow me on Twitter, ESPN Dub. That's ESPN DUB on Twitter. Well,
Twitter.
Look, Carson's over there text messaging right now. Who are you texting?
I was not texting, but it's okay. I was just looking up fight information, of course.
Look at you. Carson's always in the know.
Carson's trying to find out when that next boxing podcast there, folks. Wininger-Rudolph rematch going to happen. We'll have it next month. We'll preview the Bernard Hopkins fight.
Let's do it. I'm down. That was
great.
That was
Jared
fun.
Can tell me how some old guy is like still one of the best boxers around, and
well, that's the state of boxing.
Yeah,
Bernard Hopkins is one of the best boxers.
He is though. He's legitimately great. He's unbelievable.
But who's he fighting?
Oh, let me tell you this:
anyway.
A 50-year-old should not be able to be one of the best in his sport. Okay, that's unless you're a
Randy
golfer,
Couture was in
maybe.
his early 40s.
Mid to late 40s even.
Thank you.
He was 46.
He
but
was
yeah,
the best. Yeah.
Don't
be hating old people.
That's neither here nor there.
That's
right
Carson
now.
Ingle. Where can the 40-year-old men tweet to their Carson?
If they don't know already.
I would prefer that they didn't, but if you feel so inclined, it's at CA Ingle, INGLE.
Beautiful. Let's go through the rest of the UFC 135 card, boys. What fight jumps out to you the most, other than obviously Rampage Jones? What jumps out to you? Carson, start with you.
Well, I think that Matt Hughes has an interesting assignment just because he was scheduled to fight Diego Sanchez. His early preparation went into fighting Sanchez, and now Josh Koscheck is on that card. And I mean, it's like Matt Hughes has got a great name. No one's won as much in the octagon as he has. But at the end of the day, I don't think he's got a great chance against Koscheck, and I'm wondering how much longer he has in the UFC. I mean, this is a fight that might indicate some of that to us.
I'm looking at Nate Diaz against Takeru Gomi. Nate Diaz is in a rough situation. He's lost his last 2 fights. And Gomi is in a similar situation. So this fight, even though it's 2 big names, it turns into one of those fights where losers in pretty hot water. Nate Diaz is moving down the weight class to lightweight to fight Gomi. Diaz is a huge lightweight, over 6 feet tall, with a huge wingspan. I like Nate in that fight. I think Gomi is going to be too small for him, but it's a very intriguing fight because of just the implications that the loser is going to have to deal with.
I mean, Gomi was an international star, but he has not been succsuccessful in the UFC. He's 1-3, so it is a.
Have you been? I know you've been disappointed with him. You were high on him a while back.
Well, he's one of those pride fighters who came over and to the UFC and didn't fare well. It's what happened with Crow Cop when he came over here. He came over, kicked Sanchez in the head with that that right leg kick to open it up, and then ran into some problems in the UFC. And I think that pride fighters really got exposed while coming over to the UFC. And yeah, Gomi is just another example of that.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, he does look fairly overmatched in this fight against Nate Diaz just because of the size advantage that Diaz is going to have.
He does. And when I'm betting on fighters, like really, I don't want to sound racist, but I don't really put much stock in Japanese fighters. I don't. Their track record in the UFC is atrocious.
Pretty bad. Yeah,
it's absolutely atrocious.
So you're both going Diaz?
I'm going Diaz. He's favored. I think Diaz is going to submit him. I think Diaz, like I said before, the size advantage is going to play, huge in this fight. It's going to be a massive advantage to Diaz.
What else, Carson? You got the bottom of the card there. What jumps out also in the card there?
Well, it's kind of Ben Rothwell. Again, I think that this fight overall, as we're looking at it, this fight card is extremely cut and dry to me.
It is.
And this is another fight that Ben Rothwell and Mark Hunt, and Mark Hunt is 6-7. I mean, I'm not even sure why he's
how old is Mark Hunt? He's like 42?
I'm not sure why he's even still in the UFC. So all these fights are just very, I think, straight down for us. I don't think we're going to disagree with a lot.
We got Rothwell. Brian, what do you think?
I'm taking Rothwell in that fight. It is to Carson's point. It is one of those fights where, of course, Koscheck's filling in for Matt Hughes, or who did he come out with? Who did
Diego Sanchez?
That's right.
Koscheck is filling in for
Thank you for that. Yeah, Diego Sanchez, of course, was supposed to be on this card. He had to force withdrawal because of an injury. So, I love Koscheck as a replacement, but I think as the card as a whole, it's really surviving on the main event, as opposed to kind of spreading around.
Sure.
Great fights. There's going to be great fights on the card, but as far as major implications on who wins and who doesn't with the whole UFC as a whole, there's not really that much riding on this card as a whole, because Koscheck and Hughes, winner of that fight, I could see Matt Hughes pulling off. That would be my
upset.
My upset.
Are you going to go with that?
I am.
Whoa!
I'm going with that. Matt Hughes got knocked out by BJ Penn. Josh Koscheck is a great striker. Over his career, he started off as a wrestler on The Ultimate Fighter and really developed into a striker. I think Matt Hughes is obviously a great wrestler, veteran of the sport. I think Matt Hughes is going to pull this off just because I think Koscheck took so much damage, broken orbital bone in his last fight against GSP. I know he's going to be healthy for the fight, but when guys take beatings like that, it's one of those things where how are you going to react from that beating? And a lot of guys don't take it well, and it shows in their fight following their last beating. It shows. So I think Matt Hughes is going to be ready for this fight, and I'm going to take him over Koscheck.
I think in Brian's defense, that is at least if you're going to pick an upset on this card, that's where you have to go.
Right. You know, I would take the winner safe bet, but exactly, if you're going to pick an upset, you're going to want to win a little bit of money in Vegas. I would take Matt Hughes over Josh Koscheck.
Carson, what do you got? Koscheck?
Yeah, I have Koscheck. I said that before. I just think that this is the end of the line for Matt Hughes here at some point. If it's not this fight, it's pretty soon, and depending on how he fares, how badly he loses, this could be, we're getting to a point where we're talking, 1, 2, 3 fights left for him. Right.
I think for Matt Hughes to win, he's going to have to take a great wrestler down in Josh Koscheck. I think he's going to have to win on the ground because Koscheck, if he wants to stand and trade with Koscheck, I think he's going to get knocked out. So I think Matt Hughes is a very smart fighter. He's going to know where to take the fight. And you know what? I've seen stranger things happen in the octagon.
It surely could happen. I'm going to go Koscheck TKO.
Okay. That is a very big possibility.
And that could happen quick. If it happens where we're talking first round, we're talking early, Koscheck is going to know that he can come out right away with Hughes and trade quickly and really do some damage. So if it is that scenario, I could see it being an early knockout as well.
Yeah, and Koscheck a couple fights ago fought Anthony Rumble Johnson, who is a great wrestler, great striker, and he's the biggest welterweight in the division. He's like 6'2", like walking around at 205. He cuts like 40 pounds to make the weight, 35 pounds. But his wrestling was really isolated against Josh Koscheck. So if Koscheck wants to beat Hughes, he's gonna have to stand and trade with him.
Wow, that's pretty good. So we got Diaz winning. We all have Diaz beating Gomi in the fight. Rothwell beating Hunt?
Yes.
Rothwell beating Hunt.
I've got that.
Now, the one fight we have not got into yet is the Rob Broughton versus Travis Brown.
Yeah, this is kind of an interesting fight. Brown undefeated in the UFC. I believe he was the winner of Ultimate Fighter Season 10.
No, that was Roy Nelson.
He won one of the Ultimate Fighter seasons. I don't remember which one it was, but undefeated in the UFC. And this is, I think this is another one-sided fight for Brown. I don't see Broughton doing much against him, and I mean it's you look at the height advantage. Brown is 6'7".
Well, yeah, and his last fight, if you could remember, back at UFC 130, it was the two biggest guys in the UFC height-wise. Travis Brown when he took on Stefan Struve, the skyscraper, at 6'11". So, Travis Brown's one of those up-and-coming heavyweight fighters. And Rob Broughton, I don't know that much about, but,
That Brown fight was an early knockout. I believe it was knockout of the night. It was against Struve I'm talking about.
No, yeah. He came out and threw the Superman punch right in his face and dropped him. Dropped the skyscraper. Brown can fight. He's one of those new up-and-coming guys in the heavyweight division.
It's his fourth fight in the UFC.
Right. He had a draw with Chet Congo.
Ultimate Fighter 11, as I looked it up, he didn't. It wasn't season 10. It was season 11 that he beat James McSweeney and won that season.
Wow. So we're going Brown. I'm going Brown with the fight there. We're going Brown over Broughton. You guys pretty much agree?
Yeah, we're going Brown.
And then, of course, the main event, Rampage Jackson and Jon Jones. How many celebrities do you expect to see out there? Give me a name. Give me a prediction. Give me a celebrity.
It's Denver.
People are going to go out to Denver.
Denver, gorgeous.
Yeah, but Denver, celebrities, Denver.
Yeah.
I'm going to see Troy Tulowitzki. We're going to see...
You got to do better than that.
Tim Tebow. We're going to see...
You're just picking the most notable...
Denver.
Names on each.
I think Jay Cutler's going to come back.
I was going to say Tim Tebow would be perfect there. He'd be on the sidelines like he is right now. Right? So it'd be a perfect fit for him. Huh?
Tim Tebow's going to jump in there and win the light heavyweight belt.
Why do you always bring Tim Tebow up on these podcasts just so Lopez can tee off on him?
Please don't take Timothy Richard Tebow's name in vain, Carson.
Oh, I don't. That would be. You got to look to the guy to my right on that.
No, but I mean celebrities. Who knows?
Well, Samuel L. Jackson, huh?
Yeah, Samuel L. Jackson. What's his name? What's that guy's name? Yeah, I don't know the celebrities, dude.
Jeez, I mean, you're the IC Places
Who knows
guy,
the celebrity
Carson.
guys?
You got nothing for me.
I told you, it's Denver.
And I told you Tim Tebow. I told you Troy Tulowitzki. I told you Clint Hurdle's coming back from Pittsburgh.
Neither of those will probably be there.
Right.
Because
I can't believe you guys are just trashing the great, beautiful city of Denver, Colorado.
No, I love
That's
Denver.
unbelievable.
I don't mind Denver. Just tell the celebrities don't go there unless they're
You
going to
hate
go.
the fact this fight's in Denver, don't you?
No, it's fine.
Would you rather have it in Vegas? Do you think it would be better if it was in Vegas?
Yes, or LA. Or...
Do you have any idea why it was in Denver? In all seriousness, why is it in Denver?
It's just the rotation of it.
Okay.
You know, Orlando.
That's all I'm saying.
Be nice.
What'd you look up? It was pay-per-view, the most pay-per-views.
East Coast.
Orlando. In Orlando. Hey,
just saying. Amway
Dana
Center.
White, where you going, Dana?
We could do this show live from Amway Center, huh?
But ultimately, this fight is going to be very, very, very... It's going to be very obvious that Jon Jones is the best light heavyweight in the world. Flat out.
Guaranteeing it. Are you putting everything on it?
I'm putting...
Your house?
I'm putting my house...
Dominant.
I'm putting Carson's
house?
IC Place's job.
Yeah, you're putting your
on
job.
I'm not putting my job on the line.
I'm putting everything on the line for this. I am so confident that Jon Bones Jones is going to have his hand raised that, yes, I'm putting my job on the line. If Jon Jones loses, I will curse for 5 minutes on the air.
Well,
and get fired.
we can't. We can't do that.
Why not?
That would really not be good, Carson. I don't know. Can we?
You don't have to worry about it because Jon Jones is going to win.
I mean, why can't he? He could just calmly resign his job.
Yeah,
you don't have to.
No. Nope, that's not happening.
You're going up in flames if you're going.
Yep, I am going out with all of it.
All right.
Wow. I don't even know how to respond.
I got to respect that. I mean, it's fair enough.
What you got next for me?
I'm just, I don't even know how to respond to that deal there. We got a few minutes left. By the way, I'm going Rampage upset.
What?
Yep.
You're crazy.
Are you just doing that? Are you just doing that, or why?
He doesn't like Jon Jones.
I know you don't.
I didn't say anything like
like
Jon Jones.
Can I assume real quick?
Yes, sir.
My reason why I don't think you like Jon Jones because I don't think you think he's going to be a huge star.
Correct. That's part of it.
Is that because of his personality?
Didn't see him on Kimmel? He was good.
He was okay.
He was good on Kimmel.
He was good. Rampage was better.
Yeah, but Rampage is a clown. I mean, that's fine, but like...
No, seriously. Here, let me throw this out at you, though. I don't think Rampage is... I mean, I think Rampage has still got a punch left. And I don't care who you are. You could be the best in the world. If you don't... One punch...
Rampage is knocking anyone out. You're right.
Right.
And he still has it. I just think Jon Jones is that much better.
He should. He should win the fight. I think the longer this fight goes, I think it's to Jones's benefit. I think if you're Rampage, you want this out in one round.
But to your point, John Anik on our last show, huge Jon Jones guy. But he made the point where he doesn't necessarily think he's got the personality to be that huge star.
Right.
And that's what you need. You need a combination of greatness and personality to really be, the meter mover in all of it. You're right.
I will say to Carson's point from the last segment, I think the majority will root for Rampage. He's more popular. Makes more of an interest. I think your diehards will root for Jones, but I think the casual roads for Rampage. Actually, I'm just picking Rampage just to be different, and now we have something to disagree on.
I got Jones, second round submission.
Jackson, knockout, first round.
And hopefully Jones wins. Otherwise, guys, this was great doing this podcast
I know.
with you.
It'll be just me and Carson next week.
It's been nice working with you,
It'll
Brian.
be round 2. Can't get out of the round 2.
Wow. Well, with that, we hope Brian is back next week, actually. Now, in fact, just for that, I'm just going to root for Jones to win the fight, just because I want you back. How about
thanks.
that?
But okay.
I'm changing my pick.
That's sweet.
That is sweet.
It's nice.
And on that note, that concludes this edition of Round 3 on ESPN1080.com and ESPN 1080 The Team.